Hello and welcome to this edition of the debate on France 24. I'm Robert Parsons in Paris. Tonight, the furious storm of protests from the Islamic world in response to Britain's decision to award a knighthood to Salman Rushdie. The writer's novel, The Satanic Verses, published in 1988, infuriated many Muslims because of its perceived blasphemous depiction of the Prophet Muhammad. So much so indeed that Iran's spiritual leader at the time, Ayatollah Khomeini, issued a fatwa calling for Rushdie's execution. The author was forced to go into hiding until the Iranian government announced in 1998 that it no longer supported the fatwa. Iran has described the knighthood as a provocative act, a view supported by Pakistan, which accused the British government of utter lack of sensitivity. Joining me now to discuss the rights and wrongs of the case are Tom Hennigan, Religious Affairs Editor at Reuters, Vaiju Naravane, Europe correspondent of the Indian newspaper The Hindu, and from London, British Labour peer Lord Nazir Ahmed. Thanks for joining us on the debate. But before we start the debate itself, let's just watch this short video package.
Protesters in Karachi in southern Pakistan have chanted slogans and burned flags and effigies, angry at the knighthood for Salman Rushdie. The UK's decision to honour the Indian-born author of the Satanic Verses with the title Sir Salman is seen by some as an insult to Islam.
Rushdie is a criminal of Pakistan and Islam. He should be extradited to Pakistan to punish him after trial in a federal Sharia court.
Pakistan's Religious Affairs Minister has gone further.
This is what adds, fuel to the fire. And when these things happens, that this is the root cause basically. And then somebody goes and kills himself. And then he justifies that my prophet was, peace be upon him, was maligned.
The British government has reacted to certain of the Pakistani minister's remarks, expressing its deep concern and saying nothing could justify suicide bomb attacks. The Pakistani authorities want the knighthood rescinded, saying it does nothing but increase the gap that already exists between the two countries, as well as between the Islamic world and the West. Iran has announced it too will call in the British ambassador in Tehran for explanations. Iran's late supreme leader Ayatollah Khomeini issued a death sentence against Rushdie in 1989, shortly after publication of the Satanic Verses.
Nazir in London, if I could bring you in first. The idea that the decision of the British government to grant this knighthood to Salman Rushdie is a calculated insult to the Islamic world is absurd, isn't it?
Well, let us see what the honours are all about. We normally honour those people who do a great service to the United Kingdom. Whether you're a police officer or a teacher, you're honoured with MBEs, OBEs, and knighthoods are given to those people who make a national contribution. And Salman Rushdie, who is a writer, people have different opinions of his writing. I don't reckon he's a great writer, but some people do. This is not a Booker Award. This is an award given to people who make a contribution to British society. Salman Rushdie has never said a great thing about Great Britain. In fact, that's the reason why he left. He's gone to live in the United States. He was born in India. He's lived in the United Kingdom, enjoyed the wealth, and I don't think that he's made a great contribution. There are many good British writers.
Nazir, I take your point, but in what sense is it, as some in the Islamic world are suggesting, a calculated insult by the British government to the Islamic world?
Well, I think that's how it looks to them. First, I don't agree with their violent approach to all this. I think it's a national matter for us to debate, but probably a bigger debate in Europe to discuss when a British writer, say, for instance, the man who was refusing to acknowledge Holocaust in Austria and who was sentenced to prison. Say if he was knighted, just tell me how our Jewish friends would feel. Say if those people who deny the Armenian alleged genocide. See, this is the feeling of the French people. They want to send somebody to prison if you deny that, although they want to believe in freedom of speech and freedom of expression. So I think all people have sensitivities. When you insult someone's religion, And also, for me, if somebody insults Jesus Christ, I think they don't deserve any honor. They can write, and if they write, that's a filth they've written, but they certainly don't deserve any honor from the government, who's looking to build bridges, who wants to create interfaith and harmony within the United Kingdom, and who's been preaching community cohesion. I think this takes us towards a clash, which I want to try and avoid. And that's why I think those of us who have been saying that this is wrong decision, and if it's a political decision, it's very sad.
Nazir, I'd just like to invite you at this point.
Yeah, Nazir, I take issue with you on one question, which is when you say that you have to contribute something to British honour or to British prestige if you're doing something. I don't think so. I think if someone who's a great dancer is given a knighthood, it's because they have contributed to art. And I think Salman Rushdie has contributed to literature. And anybody, I mean, there have been several writers who've been very critical of Britain who have received knighthoods. And I don't think it's got to...
Can you name me one? Can you name me one?
Well, several. I mean, you have...
no, several. No, name me one.
I can't think of one straight away off the top of my head.
There isn't one.
Well,
there isn't one.
But you know, the thing is...
And let me just tell you, it's a myth.
No,
it's a myth.
No.
Well,
I think the question... excuse me, let me please finish. What I'm saying is Salman Rushdie is a writer. And he has contributed to literature, just as somebody else may have contributed to art. And I might differ with you because I think he is an excellent writer. And he's somebody who's won the Booker of Bookers. He won the Booker for his first book, Midnight's Children. His reputation was established well before Midnight's Children. And I think there are several people who are knighted because they are writers. And there are several people who've received the knighthood who might be indifferent writers as well, and who might not be as great writers as Salman Rushdie. And I think it would be an injustice to him just to deny him the knighthood because there are certain sentiments of people who might get upset.
You know, when people went on...
I'm sorry, can I just bring in Tom, who we haven't heard from yet? Just 1 second.
I'd just like to second what Vaju said about his qualities as a writer. I think that Salman Rushdie is one of the best writers alive writing in the English language. And he's also been one of those writers with an Indian background who has really livened up writing in English over the past 20 or 30 years. We've seen several more. We've seen Naipaul and others. And all of them have a British connection. And so I think if other writers are getting this sort of honor, I don't see why he should be denied it.
I mean, Nazir, I mean, it is difficult to deny the contribution he has made to British literature, Midnight's Children in particular, and as many are saying, the impulse he's given to British Asian writing.
You see, sitting in Paris, you would not understand that this is British honours for the people who make contribution to British society. It's not a Booker Award. This is an honour given by Her Majesty the Queen for the contribution you make to the British society. Satanic verses.
I don't think it's got to do with contribution to British society. Well, I beg your pardon. I think it's got to do with excellence.
You write for,
excuse me.
Madam, you write for Hindu newspaper in India and sitting in Paris. I don't think you are best qualified.
Sorry, I write for all sorts of newspapers. I don't think you are best qualified
to talk about British honours. Let me tell you what happens in London.
Just let Nazir finish now. Nazir, please.
You see, when Shilpa Shetty was discriminated against in Big Brother house, there were people burning effigies and burning British flags in New Delhi, and all of us said, you know, we understand the anger that is taking place in India, but when somebody demonstrates against someone who's abused their religion, has insulted deliberately and provoked a reaction, then we suddenly jump. Is it because they're Muslims? Come on, let's be honest.
No, there have been lots of people who have written about religion, have written about Jesus Christ, about other prophets, and you know, there hasn't been that kind of protest. You haven't gone around murdering people, murdering translators, you know, dishing out life threats. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, tell me then, why didn't you defend the man who was denying Holocaust Austria? Why didn't you come on TV and debated why he's been sent to prison? Not that I'm supporting him, by the way. I'm just talking about the principle, whether you did or you didn't.
I don't think, because I believe that the Holocaust did take place. And there has been enough. There has been enough material. There has been enough material to prove that the Holocaust has taken place. You know?
Well, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. But just because somebody is controversial, just because you've just argued on somebody's controversial issue that people have right to write controversial issues, so they've got the right to do it. Well, if that's the case, then why was he imprisoned, and why didn't you speak out against his imprisonment?
I do not support the Austrian government's policies in that. In America, you can say anything you like. And you can say anything you like about...
My dear, you came to jump on the bandwagon to support Salman Rushdie. What I'm saying to you, if you actually believed in the principle of
because I wasn't invited to speak on a television program on Austria. Had I been invited to speak on a television program, I would have said so.
But Nazia, too, Nazia, can I just ask you something? Aren't you in danger of getting this slightly out of perspective? We're talking about a body of work written by Salman Rushdie over many, many years, and the offending passage is about 4 lines, 4 sentences. So aren't you in danger of getting it out of perspective, distorting his work over 4 offending lines?
No, actually, it's much more than that. And let me just say that what he's wrote about Jesus Christ and what he's written about Margaret Thatcher, it's the abuse, it's the language in abuse that he's written about.
But I don't like this thought policing that you're doing. You're indulging in thought policing, and you're telling people what they should say and how they should say it. And I think that is objectionable, because starting with that kind of thing, then where are you going to stop? You're heading towards censorship.
Then why?
Nazia, I'd just like to bring Tom in. I'm sorry, Nazia. Nazia, I just want to bring Tom in here.
You are discussing. Let me tell you, why is it
I think Tom would like to say something. Just a second, Nazir. Let Tom speak. He hasn't been able to speak.
No,
1 second.
That's fine. No, I wanted to make an observation here that this is a real problem of globalization, because before there were certain standards in certain countries, and there could be censorship in certain countries, and other countries couldn't interfere that much. Now we have this, and now you can see that you have violent reactions in places like Pakistan. And what I would like to see in this discussion is not over the merits of whether he should get this or not, because, we're not going to agree on that, but whether we should continue to have these clashes where all we get is people in the West saying, I want to stand up for freedom of speech, and then people in Muslim countries taking offense and becoming violent. I think that is a big problem, and I think that should be discussed, and not too much. We shouldn't quibble too much about the merits of Salman Rushdie's literature.
I agree with Tom. Those who become violent, I not only disagree with them. In fact, I would even go even stronger than that, and I would urge people not to become violent or even demonstrate. But as I said,
but Nazir, you're guilty of emotional language yourself. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have accused Salman Rushdie of having blood on his hands.
Because of his writings, there were many people that got killed because of his writings. He knew deliberately what he was doing. He came from this religion, and he knew the sensitivities of the Muslim communities. All I was expressing was the fact that because of him, many people lost their lives in 1989.
But Nazir, the question is that the question is also that of writers, creators, artists, being in a certain sense also provocateur. And that is part of their function. That is how you get people to move. Otherwise, you remain in a kind of mental mindset. You remain in a box which has been put down for you by clerics who tell you how to think or how not to think. And, where does that leave you? I mean, I find this very objectionable that I'm not a great admirer, for instance, of Taslima Nasreen's writing. But I will defend her simply because she's under threat from a bunch of people who are out to get her. Because she has said what she thinks. And I think that is wrong, and I think the way you're going about this is wrong. I think if this thing wasn't brought up, if he was allowed to do it, I don't think, who has read the Satanic Verses?
I'm awfully sorry, I'm going to have to...
How many people of the guys
I'm
who
going
are
to have to cut you off there. We're going to have to take a 12-minute break for the news now. Thank you to Nazia in London. Join us again after the break. Welcome back to the debate on France 24. I'm Robert Parsons, and tonight we've been discussing the issues raised by the reaction in the Islamic world to Britain's decision to award a knighthood to the author Salman Rushdie. Joining me are Tom Hennigan, Religious Affairs Editor at Reuters, Vaiju Naravane, Europe correspondent of the Indian newspaper The Hindu, and from London, Ahmed Saad, Imam at the North Central London Mosque. Lord Nazir Ahmed, who was with us in the first half of the debate, has had to go. Ahmed, I'd like to bring you in first, if I could. What this seems to bring us back to again is a fundamental difference between Western and Islamic societies. Freedom of speech, including freedom to offend, is, of course, in Western societies, a cherished right.
Hello?
Yeah, Ahmed, I was saying that what this seems to boil down to is a fundamental difference between Western and Islamic societies about freedom of speech and the freedom to offend. In Western societies, we take the freedom to offend almost as a given, yet in Islamic societies, that's not the case.
Yes, actually, I believe, as someone who is representing the Muslim community here in Britain and coming also from a Middle Eastern background, that we as Muslims, we believe in the freedom of speech. But the only issue we are all against is the destroying of the society under the pretext of practicing freedom of speech. In Islam, we believe that freedom of speech has no limits. You can criticize whomever you would like to criticize, but you cannot bring the whole society into chaos under the name of practicing your freedom of speech. Yes, you are free as long as you're not harming others and you're not bringing chaos into the society.
Yeah, but to that I'd say, to what extent does a book, which is very difficult to read, which has been read by maybe not even 50,000 people in the world, how does that bring your society into chaos if you suggest that there is all this freedom of speech in Islam? Why are the people who are protesting, I think over 99% of them, or 99% of them, have not read the book?
I agree with you that heaps of Muslims, millions of Muslims have not read the book. And I'm not with the violent reaction that they have taken against the book itself. And I believe as well that the book didn't entertain much reading from many people. I'm not speaking about this specific case. I'm just speaking about as in general. It is according to the society that it decides what's going to destroy the cohesion between the communities living there or not.
But if we talk about the book specifically, how is this book going to destroy the cohesiveness of Muslim society?
I haven't read the book myself. So I'm not speaking about this specific book. I'm not specifically speaking about the Satanic Verses.
Tom,
can I ask a question? Do you think that you undermine, or the Muslim countries, Muslim societies undermine their own stand on this by allowing this violence? I mean, you see in Pakistan, this violence seems to be encouraged by politicians.
Yes, you see, there has always been a political factor into it. Like the fatwa that was issued by Khomeini a long time ago. I'm totally against it. And I believe that there was like some kind of political background behind it, some kind of political gesture behind it, in order like to attract the masses, who knows. And when the masses are heated up, the politicians would be winning something. So yes, there could be something instigated and incited by the politicians in order to gain some kind of ground with the emotional masses.
Ahmed, do you feel, guessing from what you've been saying, that there is a need for greater debate within Islamic society?
Yes, there is. There is a need for greater debate between the reasonable voices of Islam and the extreme voices of Islam. However, the West has to help in this as well by promoting dialogue. I don't believe in the violent reaction that has been taken against the satanic verses at the beginning and the honoring of Salman Rushdie nowadays. As a Muslim, I wouldn't bother if he is honored or not. I wouldn't care if he's being honored or not. But I would be totally bothered if, living here in the UK, I find that some kind of wrong steps are taken in the wrong direction, promoting terrorism in the indirect way and giving space to extremist voices to come and say, look at these people, they are offending our religion, they are doing this and that. So in this way, I believe that the West is promoting terrorism and giving space to it. There is 1 billion, more than 1 billion Muslims in the world, and we need to respect the feelings of these people and promote dialogue with them by not offending their religion.
By not offending their religion.
The whole question is who draws the line? And can we have any kind of objective criteria or lines that you're not supposed to cross? Now, independent writers, artists, creators, how can you tell a writer that, oh, you're not going to write beyond this point? You can't do that, because then it becomes policing of thoughts and it becomes censorship. And you can't have that in a free society. You have to you have to take the risks, and you have to hope that Muslim societies, just as other extremist element in other societies. I mean, I'm thinking of the film on Christ.
There is a double standard here. You see, there is a double standard here, saying that Muslims are putting censorship on creativity of people. Only like ascribing Muslims to put that kind of censorship is wrong, because the West is also putting some kind of censorship on the creative minds that might, for example, and I personally against the denial of the Holocaust, I'm totally against it. However, if someone comes and starts speaking about it, then he's offending the feelings of some people. He is offending the feelings of our Jewish friend, whom I sympathize with a lot, and I wouldn't accept that to happen to them. So I expect the same feeling to happen with me.
But in the case of the Holocaust, we're talking about something which, by almost universal acknowledgement, actually happened.
And you are talking, and in our case as well, you are talking about something which is professed by 1 billion people in the world.
I don't know. There seems to me there's a difference between a debate about belief and a debate about whether or not something actually happened.
It's a debate about what is held as sacred by people, what is what is equal and tantamount to offending the feelings and the things that are held sacred by people. So if some people say that we have suffered from something during a certain period of history, and you say, yes, you have suffered from this and we sympathize with you, and some other people say, we hold these things very dear to us and we do not like anyone to offend them, and you should also respect this.
Ahmed, I'd just like to bring Tom in here.
Yeah, Ahmed, I'd like to ask you a question. One thing that Western societies hold very dear is freedom of speech. And so there's a clash here. We can see that. What would you suggest then? How could there be a better dialogue, which you did suggest, when on the one side is the feeling of the sacred for the Muslims, and the other side a feeling of a basic fundamental freedom for Western society? Do you see any way to bridge that?
Yes, I see that reasonable Muslim leaders should come and sit with creative writers, with people who are decision makers in the West, with promoters of freedom of speech in the West, and should put something like a constitution that can act as a reference for anyone who is going to write about something. He will respect that. This is like a universal constitution which people can respect when they are writing, and at the same time they know that by respecting this, they are not demolishing the cohesion of the society, and they're not offending the feelings of certain people.
But, I react, very viscerally to suggestions that there should be limits. As a journalist who's always been a kind of independent journalist, I have never accepted any kind of rules being laid down for journalists, any kind of censorship laid down, or you can do this or you can't do that. And I think
if you are coming to me and cursing my father under the name of freedom of speech, am I supposed to stay idle there and say, thank you, you are practicing your freedom of speech?
You have the freedom to react whichever you want, as long as you are within the confines of the law.
and then if I curse your father in return, they will consider that as freedom of speech. What will happen? You will be heated up, I will be heated up, we'll get into fight, and the society will be in disruption.
No, clearly we're not talking about anarchy here, but I mean, I think if you look at Western societies, particularly the role of the church and the role of freedom of speech, for the last 400 years or so, the church in Western societies has had to live with the idea that it is open to criticism, and it hasn't done it any harm that I can see. Why should Islam feel threatened when people criticize it?
Islam does not feel threatened when people criticize, but we as Muslims feel sad when people are just dealing with us in a double standard policy. That's the only thing.
But Christians probably too feel sad when writers mock their religion, but it doesn't mean that they have to issue fatwas threatening to take the lives of the writers.
I don't agree with what has been happening. I told you from the very beginning, I didn't agree with the fatwa that was issued to kill Salman Rushdie. I didn't agree with the violent reactions that Muslims back there in Pakistan or anywhere in the Muslim world are doing. And I believe strongly that issues like this should be dealt with by the local Muslims who live in the country, who know the context and the situation better than anyone else. I don't agree with the...
Sorry, I'd just like to move on a little bit now, because we're running out of time, and to look at the statement made by the Minister of Religious Affairs in Pakistan, which seemed to justify suicide bombings as a response to this sort of thing. Vaiju, how do you react to that?
Oh, I react very badly to that. I think it is really objectionable, because I think, the government should not... I think this whole calling of the ambassador... convoking him to the Foreign Office, telling him about what they think, and these public statements. I think that's irresponsible. It's suggesting that somebody should maybe go and blow themselves up. And it can be, statements like this can be interpreted by some hot-headed people in either way, in any way.
Ahmed, I think you were trying to join the conversation then as well. Did you
yes, I was saying, yes, that people who are living there in Pakistan or anywhere in the Muslim world are not supposed to give hated things and hated statements just to justify whatever they think is right and give these solutions to us here in the West. They have to live in our shoes, they have to live in our situation to know what is the solution better. I totally disagree with what has been said, and I believe this is as much sad as what has been done also in offending Muslims and Muslim feelings. Both are two extremes.
I'd just like to say one other thing, which is also that if you look at textbooks in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, they totally denigrate the Jewish religion. Totally. And other religions, quite a lot of them. And these are tolerated and these are not commented on. And
who is tolerating them?
Well, the Saudi government, for instance, or the government of Egypt allows textbooks to carry, awful remarks about Islam. I mean, I've read those things.
I shouldn't judge the whole 1 billion Muslims
I'm not saying,
for the mistakes of the Saudi regime and the Egyptian regime.
No, but as long these are states which are centrally controlled. It's not any private school that's coming up with things. I mean, this is part of state policy then. And,
you see, we are now mixing...
So if I could just clarify this, Ahmed, what you're saying is that in societies like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, state textbooks in schools are denigrating other religions.
Yes, they are. It's saying that, that is the enemy, you have to go out and these are the infidels and this, all that sort of thing, which is kind of inciting.
And the point, Ahmed, is that Muslims, perhaps even yourself, don't complain about that sort of thing.
Who is not complaining?
Well, I think the suggestion is that by and large, Islamic society does not complain, does not reject that sort of thing, allows it to pass without comment.
No, you see, there are so many contexts and so many issues within the Islamic society that need to be dealt with separately. So like the issue of Palestine, that's an issue. The issue of Iraq, that's an issue. The issue of what you are calling as degrading other religions, which I have studied in Egypt all my life and haven't come across something like this. But the issue about infidels and calling other people infidels is totally out of context, because the word infidel itself does not belong to the Muslim dictionary. It was brought by the Crusaders when they came to the Middle East in the Middle Ages. It was never a Muslim invention.
No, but pointing to somebody who practices another religion as someone who is an enemy, essentially.
No. In the Muslim history and in the Muslim tradition, someone who is practicing another religion is a non-Muslim. Just like if I'm not practicing Hinduism, I'm a non-Hindu.
Yeah.
Okay, we're running out. We've actually run out of time already. I'm going to have to wrap it up there. Tom Hennigan, Religious Affairs Editor at Reuters, Vaiju Naravane, Europe correspondent of the Indian newspaper The Hindu, and Ahmed Saad, Imam at the North Central Mosque in London. Thanks very much for taking part in this edition of the debate. That's all for tonight. Bonsoir.